Good to see everybody as always. Steve, thanks for inviting me back so soon. I must be behaving myself and staying out of purgatory, as we Catholics like to say. That's good. So I'm sure you've heard from Sat and Clayton how excited they are to be in game week and get to Saturday. I share that excitement. We're all ready to see some different colored jerseys. I really appreciate them and of course Shane Beamer and their support. My role is a little bit unique, and special teams requires a commitment and an investment of time, and sometimes that means taking time away, meeting time, practice time away from what could be offense and defense. So those guys seeing the big picture and valuing what we do in this phase of the game, I certainly don't take that for granted. So it always feels good to feel like you're all in it together with the other coordinators. And from that standpoint, here we are Wednesday afternoon, and the mindset is, from my standpoint, that the hay's never in the barn. So we've got a few more days here, including Saturday, and we need to keep preparing and making sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed to make sure that we're in the best possible position to go out there and do a great job on Saturday night. This is definitely a veteran, talented team coming in. And as a former Group of Five and FCS head coach, I definitely understand and appreciate the mindset of a team like Georgia State coming into this game. When we were at Ball State, we beat Indiana twice. We went on the road. We beat Virginia. We beat South Florida. There was a time back in 2002 when we took a Lehigh team with 0 scholarships up to Buffalo on a 7-hour road trip and beat a team with 85 scholarships. So, I've definitely been on the other side of these games and know that we're going to get our best shot from a veteran team like Georgia State. I really believe that success early in the season, regardless of opponent, regardless of conference, it really comes down to two things. And the first is your culture. If everybody's on the same page, if everybody values the same things, if everybody is moving in the same direction, if you're addressing those things on a daily basis, your team should be ready to go and ready to perform at its best, and understand that you only get 12 of these opportunities guaranteed. So it really shouldn't matter who you're playing, because you work almost every day of the year in some way, shape, or form to put yourself in position to be at your best on 12 Saturdays. And then the second thing is not beating yourself. When you watch football games early in the season, college football games, from the SEC right on down to Division III, what you're going to see is that the teams that play clean football, that take care of the ball, that limit penalties, limit mental errors, are the ones that win. And the teams that play sloppy and go out there and turn it over and come in on Sunday morning and watch the film, and there's a bunch of mental errors and a lack of attention to detail, are usually the ones that are unhappy on Sunday morning. So the good news is that our culture here is really, really important. And we never get tired of addressing the right things. We never get tired of making sure that we're all moving in the same direction. We don't let little things slip through the cracks and go unaddressed. So that is, for me, refreshing every day to work with a guy like Shane Beamer and how he pushes all of us to make sure that we're all doing our part to further that culture. And then in terms of not beating yourself, that's where the time in meetings and the time on the practice field and the attention to detail and addressing all the little things that could come up situationally, that's where that stuff really pays off. And as we all know, those situations get magnified in the kicking game. So as we get close to the first game, if I'm in that mindset of focus and not taking my foot off the gas. It's with good reason, because I've been doing this long enough to know the things that can happen in these early games and how you want to be on the good side of those things that happen. So that being said, I'll open it up for questions. I'm sure you have some things on your mind relative to us and to Georgia State.
Pete, a couple for you. Do you think, or will Kroger be able to play on Saturday, and who's your starting place kicker?
Yeah, I anticipate Kai being ready to go. Kai's a history major, so you can imagine how much fun I have with him talking about history. So I told him a short time ago, I told him the story of the USS Yorktown in the Coral Sea, and how the Japanese thought they had knocked the Yorktown out for months. And Admiral Halsey sent it back to Pearl Harbor, told that it had to be repaired and on its way to Midway in 48 hours, and it showed up at Midway and played a decisive role in the battle. So around Sunday, I told him, here comes the Battle of Midway, Kai, let's go. And he was out there practicing on Tuesday, practiced some today. So we'll see where he's at by the end of the week, but I expect him to be ready to participate. Yeah, so Mitch Jeter has done a really nice job kicking off. So he's clearly our kickoff guy. And then we'll make a decision here later in the week about the field goal situation relative to field goal kicker, relative to holder. But I expect a lot of our guys to play in this game. And as I've told you guys before, I am not opposed to making moves week to week, situationally, in game. We've got 4 guys that can hold right now that I feel really, really confident in. We've got 3 guys that can punt. We've got 2 guys that can kick off and kick field goals. So I feel really good about our group, our depth. A lot of these guys have played in games before. We have 2 snappers that have both played extensively. So this should not be a big deal for our guys when those lights go on Saturday night. And I try to coach those guys every day, no different than you would coach a tight end room or you'd coach a linebacker room. The expectations are high. They know the lights will be on them. So I expect performances from them no less than Joe Lyle would have performed at Middle Tennessee State back in the when they were still when face masks were being introduced to college football.
Pete, you mentioned naming a starting place kicker later in the week. Is that something that you could see going through the Friday walkthrough, or is that something you'd like to announce before that maybe?
I mean, does there need to be an announcement? Somebody's going to go out there and kick a PAT or kick a field goal, right? Right. So I guess you guys can tweet about it when it happens. So no, we'll figure that out. And I've been studying all the numbers, but we've been talking daily in our room about what is happening and what could happen. And again, the competition is going to be ongoing. You saw games last year where Alex Herrera kicked off for us. So there was a time last year where Parker, didn't feel 100%, and we might have had to be ready to get somebody else out there to kick field goals. So, that's the nature of how we roll around here. It's all about competition, and it's going to be ongoing. So we'll keep that going as long as we possibly can.
And you mentioned obviously being part of a G5 over P5 games and when the G5 won. Have you talked to the team about that, and have you seen the kind of focus that you've wanted to through the first couple of days of practice?
You know what? I haven't done that specifically, and I don't think that I need to. Our guys have been really locked in and excited to play this game, and I don't think it matters who we're playing. But I know they certainly watch the film and have a healthy respect for Georgia State and the success that they've had. So our guys know this isn't Eastern Illinois rolling in here. This is a team coming in here that has won these games before, has won meaningful games in their own conference, has won bowl games, and they're going to be ready to go with a veteran team that's been there, done that, and ready to perform at a high level. So if you bring your A game, if everybody is focused and doesn't get distracted by by lights and videos and music and that kind of thing, which is all wonderful. But let's stay focused on the game, and we take care of that, and the rest of it will take care of itself.
Pete, you mentioned Mitch getting the kickoff specialist duties. I guess just what kind of went into that decision, if at all, and I guess what did you kind of see from him and wanting to put him there?
Sure. Well, he did it the vast majority of last year, and his leg is even stronger this year than it was, and so I feel very good about him with that unit. But again, if he came out and twisted his ankle in pregame, which I had happen with a punter at Memphis during the COVID season 2020, it was like, what else could go wrong with constantly changing the lineup day to day and everything. So we've all been there, and got a ton of confidence in Alex Herrera if he had to kick off, and Daniel Lester is doing a nice job, our new freshman. He's going to be a really good kickoff guy, especially after Luke Day and his staff get a hold of him this coming winter.
Hey, Pete, Clayton was just talking about you guys as a coaching staff trying to kind of have a chip on your shoulders and feeling like you have something to prove this year. What is the mindset of, the coaching room right now? And, how are you guys coming into this first game?
Yeah, well, I really love the guys I get to work with every day, and we're all so different. We all have different personalities, and we all have our quirks, of course, but it's a great group of guys. And when you look at our staff, a lot of us are guys that came up from the smaller school ranks. Clayton spent time obviously at Western Kentucky, but at UConn. And of course, my career at the FCS and Group of 5 level, and I coached Division III football early in my career. Sat was an FCS coach. Jimmy Lindsay coached at Furman, and Stepp went to Furman. And so, you look at our staff, Greg Atkins at Marshall all those years as a player and as a coach. And so when you have guys like that, I think there's a mindset every day that you're grateful to be here, and you don't take it for granted that you're here. You don't get spoiled, and you don't feel entitled. You don't think you should roll into work and be on a cruise ship every day. When you get a meal provided, you're thankful to get that meal. You're not saying this meal isn't good enough. No, you're grateful to get that meal. And I think that trickles down to the kids, because if the coaches are grateful and appreciative and humble and show that they're a team and a unified front, then you're more likely to get that out of the players, because I really believe that the players feed off the coaches. Clayton coached special teams for a long time in some way, shape, or form. So he knows, what I'm dealing with every day. And so if he starts off a defensive meeting by talking about how important special teams is, he knows he can make a big difference with that.
A couple things for you. I think you mentioned last week that Marshawn Lloyd was going to have some special teams roles. What are they, and how do you balance that with him coming off the injury, and of course Christian being injured, and also who are a couple of the kind of special teams guys who we're going to see feature on a lot of the different groups? There's always a couple of those kind of special team standouts who are doing everything.
Sure. Well, Marshawn is healthy. He will contribute on special teams Saturday, and I'm not going to get into specifics, what unit and where, but he's going to be out there. He's on the depth on a few units, and he looks great. The first day he was back out there, whatever day it was, I was like, "You got fresh legs, man. You look great." And he's excited. He knows that he's got to step up and start to make a meaningful contribution on special teams. And there's a number of other guys in that very same position that they may have played some on offense and defense last year. They may have pretty big roles on offense and defense, but they know they have to be great special teams players for us, for this team to have the kind of success that it wants to have. I will say this, we've got a great freshman class. And one thing that you are going to see on Saturday night is you're going to see some of our true freshmen out there playing on special teams. And it's not because we don't have anybody else. It's because they've earned it. We got some ballers in that freshman class. And I stand up here in front of you today, and I have total confidence in some of these guys to go out there and cut it loose because they're just wired that way. And they're engaged in my meetings. They're answering questions in my meetings. And they go out there and they can take what we've covered in the meeting and apply it on the field. And I just sit back and I'm like, this is awesome because this is what you want, right? These guys are hungry. And I mean, shoot, Nick Emamori gave a mini lecture on D-Day in one of my meetings the other day. He knew it was American, British, and Canadian forces, and that France was occupied by the Germans. Right there, he got himself on a unit.
You talked a little bit about how you still have some ongoing battles at kick returner and punt returner last time. I'm not going to mention the word that Clayton said we shouldn't, but is there any kind of clarity there on those two spots and who might be featuring in those roles?
Yeah, depth is a real asset for us right now. Here's the thing, and I was having this conversation with one of our freshmen yesterday. My depth chart on special teams is a big matrix. It's always evolving and it's changing every day. And it's not because simply one guy is better than the other and you're making that move. It's because there's a lot that goes into it. This guy's playing more on defense. So even though I'd like to use him here, I got to make him a backup because I'm worried that he's going to play 70 snaps at linebacker, all of those type of things. So it's an evolving depth chart that takes into account a lot of other factors. And so having multiple guys that you can turn to and rely on at returner among other spots is really, really critical. And getting guys like Marshawn back into the lineup and the roles that they play wherever they fit in on these units is really critical in the short term and the long term.
Pete, what have you seen from Georgia State in terms of the film you've been able to break down, and what goes into building? What are some of the finer points of maybe building a special teams game plan to introduce it to people?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think their talent level, they're guys that can run and hit and just explosive football players is very good. The fact that they've been in so many meaningful games is very good. They hired a full-time special teams coordinator, so that is a message that they're ramping up the importance of it, and they see that maybe they can take the next step forward as a program, having somebody totally dedicated to that. So I've watched all of their film from last year and some previous years, and I've also gone back and studied this special teams coordinator and his background, because one would think he's going to come in and maybe be able to tweak some things, even though they're a very established program. The key guy for them is this Michael Hayes, 39, who many are saying will be an all-conference type player in their league, and he's a very good punter. He angle punts, he rugby punts. He's a very good kickoff guy, and he may be their field goal kicker as well, it sounds like. So they've also got some other potential field goal kickers. Their snapper's back. They've got a couple different holders that they use. So it sounds like they've got multiple options in their specialist positions. But the key guy is this guy, Michael Hayes. And has anybody ever seen Dr. Strangelove, Peter Sellers? Okay, we have at least one member of our media. All right, that's a good homework assignment for you guys. Well, Peter Sellers plays like 5 different roles in the movie, okay? So you guys can do some studying on that.
I've heard of that movie, but I haven't watched it.
It's like mid-'60s, black and white, Cold War stuff.
Okay.
U.S., Russia, all that.
You've got my interest with that then.
Okay, good. Good. Well, you're going to be watching some college football over the weekend, so maybe just put that on your agenda for early next week.
Well, I was watching college football last weekend, and there was an onside kick in a game.
Yes. I'm not shocked that you're asking me about that.
It seemed kind of peculiar, but what are some of the – is it just typically a thing the head coach says, hey, let's go out and do this, just generally speaking? And how, as far as onside kicks, like how much time do you guys spend working on that particular
Sure. Well, life is all about timing, right? So it didn't take long for the ESPN announcers to be critical of that decision in that game, up 11, right? And there may have been another time in the game when, and if it worked, that it would have been the greatest call ever, right? So life's all about timing, and I'm sure they probably saw something that they thought they could exploit, and for whatever reason, whether it wasn't executed perfectly or Northwestern just did a fabulous job defending it, it didn't work out. But it was a huge turning point in that game, and watching both teams, some people say, well, momentum's not a real thing. Momentum was a real thing in that game, because after that play, you didn't know one team was up 11 and another was down 11. It seemed like that took a lot of the wind out of Nebraska's sails in that game.
Just as far as how much you guys work on it, is
Oh, well, so we are always working on exotic stuff, right? Now, there may be certain weeks when things look more tempting than others in any unit, but our mindset's always going to be very aggressive, right? So we want to have the ability to attack the opponent in any phase of special teams. And the fact that I can spend time with our specialists and spend time with our entire team working on anything and everything relative to being aggressive on special teams, that is always going to be our mindset.
Anything else for Coach Lembo?
All right, guys. We'll see you Saturday night. Thanks so much.